So, Candice, there is a trend at the moment where marketers seem to be going back to brand marketing and away from growth tactics. 40% of growth marketing budget has been reallocated back to brands. And the reason it seems to be is that marketers are saying they can't properly attribute, that it's impossible to do so. And so maybe because they don't want to be evaluated their jobs based on the outcomes purely from the data, they're then going back to more generalized brand marketing, perhaps marketing before the data revolution. Do you think, one, can we attribute marketing? And two, is it so difficult?
Just let me get it right. By growth marketing, you meant all the digital advertising, the paid marketing.
Digital advertising primarily, they're saying is very difficult, but also things like content marketing.
Okay, that's a very interesting trend, going back to the dark ages. I guess the first thing is growth marketing is not impossible to track. It's actually not that difficult. I think the key thing here is it's not possible to get 100% accuracy on growth marketing. But the thing is, you can get really good certainty on where you should be allocating your budget. So if you know nothing, then that's not true. If you want to know absolutely everything black and white, that's not possible. But to get 80, 90% certainty on what you're doing, at least the trend, that is not that difficult to do. It'd be interesting to dig a bit deeper for those that have troubles attributing their marketing spend. Why is the case? I have a feeling it's probably somewhere within their data stack, not having one or not connecting it. With all these cookieless practices by all these different all the big companies, Google is thinking on their own. Visibility has been lost. There's a certain kind of visibility, but companies always have their first party data. Right? That is 100% accurate, and you have good visibility within that. So it is something to look a bit deeper. I don't agree with the notion that you can't track growth marketing.
One of the common problems cited is just that they're advertising on Meta and Google, and then the numbers don't match up. Basically, they're getting 200 people, but they're only getting 100 customers. How do you deal with that?
Well, that is absolutely the reality, right? Because all this platform, their view is singular. They only look at Facebook, who did I bring in for you? And we talked about this before. People's behavior is quite complex, right? They often research about a product, they get distracted with their day-to-day life, they have to come back to it. So the conversion journey is getting more and more complicated. There's a lot more competitor on the market. They do a lot more research. Consumers getting a lot more savvier as well. So they spend a lot more time, especially if the ticket item is a bit it's quite high in terms of price. So you all of a sudden have a lot of different touch points within the conversion flow. And then if you are limited by last click approach, or then you have partial view, but that doesn't mean you have no view, right? It also doesn't mean you can't fill in the views that you don't have. So you start with the visibility that you do have, and that already gives you a wealth of information. And if you are a company that lucky enough to have very short conversion flow, then you're sitting on a gold mine, right? You 100% everything. What is effective in terms of spend, content, and digital, or they sometimes the same thing, and then and that's a starting point. Right? And then you can look backwards, and then you can supplement your data with something else as well. Lots of company has a survey, for example. They ask people, maybe not everyone answer, but 10% you can extrapolate, right? So all of a sudden you have a lot of things, and if you are a website, you have other touch points as well. You can look at the different times people landed on your website. Where do they come from? All of a sudden you have a fuller journey of their conversion funnel. So you might not have the 100% complete picture like we talked about already, but you should have a great amount of data, gold nuggets.
Yeah. I guess the other part of that problem is just that somehow we've sleepwalked into a situation where there's 348 times more websites in the last 10 years. So a lot more competition, a lot more people in the businesses, no niches anymore. And yet there's only like 4 main advertising platforms. They've got a stranglehold on the industry. CAC has been rising massively. Some would say inflated and not in line with how people are searching. How can companies deal with that where it's not in their control, the cost?
So there's a few things. Like we always say, as you grow, you should always look at your composition between organic traffic and paid traffic. Right? So that's the first thing. If you have too high on either side is bad. I'll tell you why. So if you have 100% acquisition coming from paid marketing, that's not a very sustainable business for a lot of reasons. Like one that you mentioned, that the cost is forever increasing, that you're not in control. What if CAC doubles next year, then all of a sudden you might be out of business. So there's a few components here. There's the LTV play, there's the CAC play, right? If your LTV is $100, let's say on average for everyone, and your CAC is 50, then that's great. You can forever pour in more money until the CAC becomes 100, right? But then come back to the point of organic traffic. If you're 100% paid, you don't have a scalable business. If you're 100% organic, that means you're not efficient enough, because you always should supplement the other. Imagine if your company is growing naturally with word of mouth. Imagine what you can do by adding a bit more marketing. Okay, marketing budget. So the reason I say that is what company can do in this situation is look at a few things. One, how can you increase your organic traffic, right? And second is the LTV. So LTV is not relating to marketing spend, it's relating to how can you make the customer a lot more stickier, value product, or get the value out of the product. And so they come back more. Or if you're a subscription model, then they don't churn. So that's the whole retention repeat purchase play once you have a user in. So we will look at stats before. It's 7 times cheaper to retain a customer than buying a new one, especially to the problem you talked about, cost being higher. So that's one. Look at referrals, look at those things, brand champions. So that's one. And then in terms of the cost side, if we talked about people don't know the attribution where they're spending. If you don't have the right data connected, then you're also working in the blind. So you might be spending somewhere that is bringing you very low quality user, and we always judge quality by LTV. So how much they want to be worth to you. So if you keep spending somewhere that bringing your customers in volume, let's say a lot of them, but all of them only spend a tiny bit, right? That means you are net losing in this channel. So that visibility is quite important.
Typically, if a company wants to do that today, they probably know what their average order is, or they know what their average customer is. They can do that maths of I've had 22 conversions and it's going to be $5,000, let's say. But it's only months, maybe even years later when they actually find out if that was true or not. How does data shorten that?
So LTV as a signal is difficult. That's the point you're raising, because you don't have the time to wait for a lifetime to decide. Okay, you as a customer are 10 times worthier than I am because we don't have the data yet. So that brings in the how can you make a long indicator short, right? And that's the whole play of LTV predictions. So that's something, in my previous gig at Bumble, we did, this is 10 years ago, predicting the value of a person within 15 minutes of someone joining. So you can get, and we're 10 years later now, the technology has improved, so you can get there a lot quicker and easier and cost effectively. So to have a model to say, as soon as Oliver joined, or if you're an app, you signed up, or if you're an e-commerce company, you bought the first product, as soon as that moment, they should have enough data to give you a good guess to say, okay, based on who Oliver is, like, you're based in London, you are in a particular demographic, you might be using an iPhone, which suggests some economic power as well. So all that indicators, and the first product you bought as well. So you might bought a more premium product compared to myself. I might bought the base level, and I might be, living in a less affluent area. So all that factors leading to a prediction, right? So it's not going to be accurate. You're not going to be 100% accurate, but it's a fairly good indicator. You could get to 90% accuracy over a lifetime. So all of a sudden, as soon as you sign up, you have a feedback to say Oliver is going to be worth $500, as opposed to Candice, based on everything we know, she's probably going to be worth about 100. So once you have those indicators, you all of a sudden can optimize your marketing budget a lot more efficiently, because as a company, you want more of Oliver's and less of me, especially if acquiring me costs $200 and I'm only going to be worth 100 to you.
Yeah, definitely. And from a brand point of view, there is a common sense about it in the fact that we have so many more competition, so many more websites. It does make some sort of common sense that you should focus a little bit more on brand and an attention-starved consumer time. But how do you look at that from a data point of view? Do you just think that that's very fluffy? It doesn't go to the end customer brand? How do you do brand activity and then say it was worth the money?
So that's a really great question. So brand versus paid, there is a golden rule that I can't remember the author now. It is a 40% golden rule. So if you have a marketing budget, you should think about applying 40% to your brand marketing. And this rule was written at the time data wasn't obvious, available as they are today. So and branding is important because we've seen this before. As soon as companies start spending on branding, their cost per acquisition on the paid channel will be lower. And this is because if you are a brand that is not very well known, it will take a lot more time to convince someone to click on it. So if you wherever you're advertising, you're paying by impression, right? Every time I see your ad, you pay, right? It's not about, you're not paying on the result. You're not paying when they click or when they buy something. You pay when they see you. So it's an impression business. And how do you convert that impression quickly to business values to you? And this is where branding comes to play. If people already know your brand, they're more likely to click and buy, right? So this is why spending in branding is very, very important. It's a bit upper front, it's above the line. And when you do that, there are data models that can be applied to look at the impact of your business bottom line. So you have much better data on the growth marketing side, and you have fairly good estimations from brand marketing as well. So you can combine all those. There are many different approaches to do so. It requires, again, data pipeline, very disciplined data processes, and marketing spend processes as well. You have to spend in a way that can support your insights.
So if you were the head of marketing today and you're trying to figure out what's my mix between these things, how do you go about that?
I think you use the word mixer. I think you're leading towards the marketing mix modeling approach. So no matter the approach, MMM is a very good model to do. But the thing is, you have to have the visibility in a centralized way, right? You have to know where you are spending. That's the first of all. We see many companies don't even have that centralized view of their budget. If you have, let's say, $1 million budget a year, how is that distributed, right? How is that? Do you have 40%? Do you have 20% in the tube? Do you have 20% on TV? 10% on Facebook? What is that composition? What is the mix? And then once you know that, that's one side of the coin, and the other side becomes, okay, for the money I spent, what did I bring in? Right, and then that there will be a different level of challenges. So on the growth side, on the paid side, digital content side, where you have the data visibility to a certain extent, you should have good indications to guide you with that marketing, the budget allocation and all that. But then on the branding side, then the indication might be different, right? Because they don't necessarily lead to purchases right away. It might be awareness, then there's different measures you can do. So the amount of search of your brand names on the internet, that could be one good indicator. You could be conducting surveys on brand awareness, and you'll be benchmarking awareness throughout time, and then tie into your brand spend. So that's another way. So no matter your marketing approach, there's always indications, and you always should be using those to help you make better decisions.
Cool. Good discussion.
Right? Loved it.